Hey folks, VM Explorer here, and in this video series, which is that 10 gigabit home NAS, we're going to go through getting that DRIVESTOR 2 Pro and that LOCKERSTOR 10 actually set up and ready to go. So I've kind of hooked them up. I got them all ready to go into a 10 gig network. Now, of course, we know that the DRIVESTOR 2 Pro here only has a single 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, whereas the LOCKERSTOR 10 has both a dual 2.5 and it also supports a dual 10 gig interface, right? So there's a few differences. So why don't we start by looking at some of the ways I get started with these guys. So the first thing I like to do is I like to go through the pages, even before I buy something, right? I'm going to go through their websites. I'm going to look at the specifications. I'm going to see if things align to what I'm most interested in, right? I do a lot of home labbing with virtualization. I also like to do Plex and things of that nature. And right off the bat, you can see they're starting to show their Plex logos, which means they're relatively compatible. So we probably need to look at that a little bit further as we move on. And I'm sure as these video series move on, we'll try to, put some Plex videos in there, check out what this whole transcoding thing is about and how it levels out the video for 4K with the DRIVESTOR 2. We'll go through those. So again, basically, do you like to start here? Go through, get an idea, and right away you can see that they start calling out 4K transcoding. What does that exactly mean? And that's one of the questions I kind of posed to Asustor. What does that mean when you guys say 4K transcoding? And here's what it comes down to from what I assessed is you can create a 4K video file and stick it on this device. Then you can use their looks good application, and what it will do is it will basically translate that 4K image into the destination display device. So if you have a 720p device, you can't display 4K imagery, but you want to play this 4K file. So it kind of downgrades the video in a very smooth way onto your device, whether it's 1080p, etc. It doesn't necessarily mean that you'll get a 4K video file out of it. It just means it's going to adapt it to the target device when you do playback. Now, we'll get into that more, right? Just know that internally, this particular chipset that they have here, which is this Realtek 1296 chipset, right? Internal to it, it actually has a hardware decoder that's in the processor, right? So that means that it doesn't have to use software necessarily to kind of transcode or translate the video to different resolutions. So it's native, and in turn, that should give you better performance, and it should look a lot smoother. We'll definitely check that out when the time comes. But that's kind of a neat feature. Looking at the LOCKERSTOR 10, it doesn't have those features, right? And that's okay. Different device, different purpose, right? And when you're comparing these two, that might be something to think about. What do you really need this device for? I can see with a LOCKERSTOR 10 with 10 disks, that's a powerhouse. I mean, that's a lot of storage, right? And a lot of performance out of it. Great. It's got the 10 gigabit Ethernet devices and 2.5. It's got a lot of options, very flexible, but it might not be able to transcode the video as smooth. So there's some trade-offs, right? And those are the types of things I would start looking for as I go through here, is trying to stack these up side by side, looking at each of these, seeing how they adapt, like dual M2 slots on the Locker 10. That's great. There's not something like that on the Pro 2. But then again, they're different devices. Now, one thing I noticed is they do support the ADM 4.0, which is nice. That's their software, right? And as I go through a lot of these things, I start looking at, what are the applications that they support? What exactly can they do? And that's where I found kind of very uniquely is here as we start looking at their downloads, and let's shift pages here, right? Almost exactly the same. All right, so you can see the product ID 72. We're still looking at the downloads that are available for the Drive Pro 2 here on the left. One thing I like about it is, okay, so ADM, that's nice, right? Nice 3-letter acronym, and their download starts to match those acronyms as well, right? So that's their actual software. But the Asustor backup plan, ABP, right? Those acronyms line up, and guess what? So do their downloads, same file name. Very nicely. Someone took some time to think about that and just didn't start throwing, files out there, right? And very feature rich. A lot of desktop apps and things you can look at here that these products come with. And we'll go through a lot of them. We'll get them installed. We'll start playing with the backup and restore, their control center, their different download assistants, the Easy Connect, and they have some Macintosh apps. I might play with the Macintosh apps. Most of them will probably be Windows, but maybe we'll spin up, a Mac app or two, right? And play with those as well. So I like to go through a lot of these applications, kind of get an idea. Maybe I pull one of these out and stick it into a YouTube video and get it going from there. All right. So enough with that. That's the big items. Also, I like to look at the data sheets that they offer, right? You can go through a lot of the data sheets and see some of the different items on the particular devices, hardware specs, all that type of information always comes in handy. So what's kind of neat about these devices is that, they require a drive to actually get started. And that's probably because the operating system has somewhere to be, right? So when you fire them up for the first time and you don't put disks in them, now that goes against their guidance, right? Their guidance is, get the system ready to go, mount it, plug it in before you power it on, stick some drives in it. Right, and if you don't stick drives in it and you power it on, this is what you could expect. It's going to look like this, right? It can't install the ADM, the Asus Data Master, or managers, which should be called, but that's what they call it, the Data Master, right? So it can't be installed because there's no drives in there. So there's not much you can do with these devices, until you get those disks installed. Now, a quick way to find out the IP addresses is just go to your local router, and that's what I did here. I went into my local router and I could see, hey, there's the devices, right? There's the Locker 10, right? LOCKERSTOR 10. And here's the Drive Pro 2 on 13. And then I simply just typed in their address up here, and lo and behold, I got them. So let's move forward with the Drive Pro 2. I'm going to go ahead and insert its disks. We're going to pause the video, and then we're going to come back in and get it set up and move it forward. All right, so the drives have been inserted, and while it's going to refresh here in a minute, let's go look at the quick install guide for the Drive Pro 2. So I would recommend starting with this, and if you haven't yet, one thing I also recommend doing is download everything, right? On that download page are all those files where I went through and got everything and actually cut a revision of it. What I like to do is actually put all of those together so that I can actually store them, and I might put it a date. So I might put September 7th, 2021 downloads, and these would be all of them in that package. And then as they advance the different guides and different programs, I might add more into a different folder. But I highly recommend grabbing them all, because you never know when you're going to need one, and you need it local and you don't have the internet access, things like that. All right, so back to the quick installation guide for the Drive Pro 2. Pretty simple. I mean, it's not too complex. Various warnings and things like that. They let you know what you can expect in the box, right, for these two different brands. We have the 3302T here that we're going to be going through, and as we move forward, they talk about optional accessories, right? And then the hard disk removals. Okay, so basically just letting you know you need a Phillips head screwdriver, things of that nature. No big deal here. All right, so pulling off the lid, pulling out the disks, getting your drives ready to go, mounting your drives. Now these are toolless, so they kind of snap off the side, drop your disk in, right? On the smaller disks, the 2.5, you're going to have to screw them in to the drive caddy. No big deal. Pop the drives back in, right? Need at least one, and you're good to go. Now, attaching the power cord, I thought this was a pretty cool little feature. So on the back of the unit, they can show you right here, there's actually a clip that holds on the power cable so that it doesn't come disconnected. The odd thing about it is there's this really big kind of magnetic shield there that helps shield the cable and keep the power clean from noise and stuff, but it gets right in the way. So you'll have to kind of come up with a creative way to kind of snap it on there, but it does work. You know, it's just a little bulky, right? And it's purposeful. I mean, that's there for a purpose, to keep the power clean and give you a good experience. But that clip is kind of nice. I don't see that with a lot of different NASs where they've taken the time to think that, hey, what if this gets disconnected? Maybe we can come up with a way to make it a little more resilient than just the, you know, the standard zip tie that a lot of us do. So that's a nice little feature there on the case, right? It also, that clip is also a nice way to pull off the side of the case. If you watched the previous videos, I kind of used it to kind of pull on just a little bit, not too hard so you wouldn't break it, but just a little bit to kind of move the case open. All right, so and then one other thing here. Did we miss it? Not yet. It's coming up. All right, so we get it going here. Get your power hooked up, right? Get your network hooked up and power it on. Now, fair word of warning, when they put the discs in, it's going to flatten them. So if there's data on there, you're definitely going to want to back it up. All right, and at this point, we're ready to get back into the control center, which will get installed here shortly, and then we'll start going through the automatic setup of the actual device. Okay, so Control Center can be used to set up the NAS device for the first time if you want to use it. Okay, you don't have to, but if you want to use it, you can. You can install the Asus Control Center. It'll go out and scan the network and find different devices. From there, you can go through the wizard's instructions, right, to complete the configuration process and move it forward. And then it'll talk about different lights and darks and etc. Now, the good news is that they have a Mac version of it too, but you don't necessarily need to use the Control Center if you don't want to, right? You can do it over the web installation. So like I pointed out earlier, if you're able to find the IP address of the NAS, you can get into it, and that's what you can see right here. So let's go ahead and make this full screen, and now we're actually setting up this Drive Pro 2. So it's actually saying, hey, you know, initialization means your NAS will be prepared, and erase the hard drives in your NAS. Okay, please back up the data before proceeding. Probably very important. If you put these disks in there, just be aware they're gonna get erased, right? So let's go through it here. Okay, update the ADM. So it looks like there's an available, and they can actually update the software to me, which would be fine, or I can skip that and manually do it later. So let's go ahead and do the update process. Okay, so now it's going to go through and do the update. It's going to move into the partition phase, and then when it's done, it's going to be able to update the system and restart. In fact, it's already 55%, moving pretty quick. So it looks like that file's there. It's going through the update, and then we'll restart it. I'll start the video back up as soon as she's ready to go and done. All right, so that took all of 2 minutes or so to actually update it and move to this next screen, which is system initialization. What appearance do I want? Do I want to do a standard setup or a custom setup? So I'm going to choose the dark screen, right? This uses the optimized settings with your hard disk, or manually configure it step by step. So let's do manual configuration. Okay. You know, enter the server account, account name, a new password if you want. So let's put something here. All right. All right, Arizona time, date's fine, synchronize with NTP, that's fine. Or if I have a local NTP, I'm sure I could put something in here or choose a different one as well. And then when to actually update it, daily's fine. Okay, network 1, obtained automatically, that's fine. We'll figure out how to set it manually when we get a chance. There's only one network interface, so nothing really to worry about there. And then as you can see, it found these 2 500 gig disks. Now that's fine. I wanted to use these 2 500 gig disks because I plan to upgrade them to 3 terabyte disks later. So for now, we're just going to start with these 500 disks. So let's see what we can do with them. If I choose both of them, right? And I say RAID level, okay? I can do just a bunch of disks, RAID 0, which is almost essentially just a bunch of disks, right? No protection. RAID 1, which is kind of a mirror stripe. I can't do 5 because I need at least 3 or 6, and I can't really do 10 because there's just not enough disks in the set. So my best options are probably going to be RAID 1 and less, and it knows that. Look, they're grayed out, so I can't choose them. I can only choose the ones that it enables me to do. So I'm going to choose RAID 1, okay? And choose the disks. Okay, there we go. And it's basically going to be half of it. And a little bit overhead, right? A couple gigs of overhead there, but no big deal. And then just another warning saying, hey, you're going to lose your data. I'm going to confirm I understood and start initialization. And away it goes. So this is going to take a while, probably to go through, prepare the hard disks and get it done. We'll restart the video after a quick break, and then we'll move on to the next steps. So again, that actually went pretty quick. I'm not going to register at this point. I'm not going to say I have an ID. Move forward. I could put more information if I went. It looks like it's trying to require me to. Let's go back. Register later is what we want to choose. There we go. I'll register my information later with them. Don't need to do it. And now we're ready to go. And that, my folks, is the setup for the DRIVESTOR 2. We'll do the DRIVESTOR Locker 10 here in just a minute. All right, so let's switch gears over to the LOCKERSTOR 10. So I'm going to choose OK or continue on this. This is still the Drive Pro 2. It's just saying, hey, look, these are all the things it can do. Done. Okay, manage your space, different information on it. Accounts and privileges, might want to set those up. Different services. Unleash the potential of your NAS, absolutely. Get those apps in there. Plex will be doing that, playing around with it, right? Okay, backups, NAS anywhere, a lot of different features. So looking forward to playing with this quite a bit. Well, we're going to be getting into it, but right now let's get into the LOCKERSTOR 10. Okay. I think it was 13 if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, there it is. Okay, well actually that's the other one. So let's get the LOCKERSTOR 10 up and working. All right, so here's the LOCKERSTOR 10. So we have put drives in there, right? So now we're going to go through it, initializing it again, letting us know we're going to, take all the data. And again, they also have a quick guide for this. It's very similar. Insert the disks, be aware you're going to remove them. You might want to go through that. Do know that when you put these drives in these bays, there is a screw kit that it comes with. They're countersinked screws so that they fit in perfectly, and the drives slide in nice and smooth. So you just can't go using some old PC screws that'll fit. Use the ones that came with them, or make sure you're using hard disk screws that actually work well on those caddies, right? So as you pull these caddies out, you're going to want to make sure you use the appropriate screws. All right, so again, we're going to do an actual update. Okay. And it's going to go through that process. Very similar. I mean, how nice is that these are two different products from Asustor, right? But their process to get them actually up and running is very similar, right? The colors are a little different, but the actual process and the actual stages are very similar, very quick. And you can see right now it just beeped on me, so it's going to go through its restart, and probably here in about a minute or so it'll be good to go. All right, and it is ready to go. Again, very similar in setup. This is the 3.5 version versus the 4.0 version of their software. So let's go through. Last time we did custom setup, and this is one-click setup. So let's continue with custom setups. We can see all the options. I could change the language if I need to. And I also notice there's, several options down here too. If you need support, different, colleges, their actual education, which if you haven't seen that yet, a lot of great features there. Check that out. A lot of good training there, right? Compatibility matrix, downloads, and different forums as well. So let's go into custom setup. Okay. I'm going to leave it as admins, fine. We'll put in our password. All right. Again, NTP sync. It's in the Arizona time zone. That's fine. We don't really care about link aggregation, but there are different options here. It's recognizing 4 different LANs, which is correct. 2 are the 2.5s, 2 are the 10 gigs, right? We're going to leave it at automatically, for now, automatically obtain the IP address, and we'll give it a manual address later. Okay, and now we get into data protection. So this one's a little different, right? So I actually put in 2 different drives, this being a Hitachi 2 terabyte drive, and then a Seagate 1.5 terabyte drive is what it was, right? So it's going to ask me, what's your RAID level? What do you want it to be? Again, grayed out, which is nice. It shows the different ones I can choose, JBOD, RAID 0, RAID 1. So I'm going to choose RAID 1. Okay, I'm going to choose the drives I want, which is 2 of them. And if you notice, the space is 1.36 terabyte. Well, why is that? Well, it's got to use the drives you give it, and it can't be greater than the smallest drive. So if I put a 160 gig drive in here, this RAID set's going to be 160 drive, right? I can then choose the ext4 as the default. We're going to leave that where it is, and then we're going to click on confirm. I've understood the above. It's going to erase my data, move forward. Okay, once again, the 3 phases. It's going to get this all set up the system volume, get it ready to go, get everything integrated. Again, all the questions we answered earlier, and get it all done, and it'll be set. Usually this process takes it about maybe a minute or 2, so we'll pause the video and catch it up when it's all done. All right, it's all finished up, and now it's actually registering your NAS, so I highly recommend you do that. If you've actually purchased one, these are demo units, so I'm not going to register them. And let's click start, and it's going to get right into. All right, your privacy is important. Different features that it talks about, very similar than last time, the accounts, the services. And we're ready to go. So folks, the last thing we're going to do is we're going to install the control center piece. Let's get that going here and get everything out of the way. And that's this guy here, ACC, the Asustor Control Center, right? Let's go ahead and get it installed. Yep. Pretty quick, 5 or 6 clicks. We'll take a quick pause here. When it's done installing, we'll hop right back. All right, here's the next choice that came up. So we're going to choose install. Just finishing up the installation, and now it's going to launch it. Now you can install this before if you want to. If you're having difficulties figuring out what your IP address are on your different devices, things like that, you'll be able to do it. So let's do a scan and see if it can locate them. Sure, look at that. Right away it found both of them, and it's scanning for others. But that's really what we wanted it to do, was to get out there and find those devices. We can see what their IP addresses are. And I think this would be a handy tool to have around just in case. Maybe you can't get into your NAS device, but it's able to through a MAC address or something along those way. Maybe we want to orchestrate ADM updates for all of these, right? So let's double click on one. And here it goes. It's going to open it up, and we'll choose Chrome. It's going to take us into the web address of it, right? That's where I would log in and go from there. Switch this to English, right? And away you go. Okay. You can open it up, which was the same as before, right? We've got basically connect to different items, the actual updates, some servers. There's the looks good option, right? And different actions, power down, restart. So if you're managing multiples of these, I could see where this would be really handy to have it in a single control center area and be able to manage multiple items. All right, so the last thing I want to just cover real quick, even though we've talked a lot about these different devices, I wanted to point out that these particular items are not on the VMware hardware compatibility list, and that's okay. It's by design. Not everything is. So let's check out the VMware HCL. If we type that in, right, hardware compatibility list, and if we take a look at it, I'm going to click on storage and SAN, right? There are different types of devices that come up here. Though Asustor as a partner is listed on the hardware compatibility guide, the specific Asustor device is not. Now, it's good that some of them are listed out here. You know, we've got different models of them in general that are listed, like the AS6, etc. But we're in the AS3 model, right? So we're not even in the AS6 particular blend. Now, the LOCKERSTOR 10, which is an AS6, right? It is listed here, and we can kind of start to get some information about it. So when I click on that particular model, we'll see that it's only certified up to 67U3 for NFS only. It hasn't been certified for iSCSI or anything else, just NFS. So Asustor took the time for their AS6 series models and etc. to actually get them on the hardware compatibility list and go through the process. And again, not all devices necessarily need to be. You need to be on the hardware compatibility list if you want support from VMware, right? And this is a home lab where I'm probably going to interface some ESXi to it, and I might get an erratic result. That's okay. I don't expect these devices to be that way because they are consumer grade devices that folks might use in their home lab, and we accept that when we do home labbing with VMware that we might have some sort of irregular behavior. Generally, should they work? Yeah, probably, and we'll go through the steps, hooking them up, maybe running a few VMs on them and testing them out. But just in general, just know that there is a hardware compatibility list for VMware products. Asustor is listed with some of their products, right? And I'm sure they'll go through different testing and checking it out really soon, right? And they'll go from there. And I stand corrected. Last time I said the 6 series didn't have iSCSI support. It does. It's right here. I just missed the click. Sorry, didn't see it. Array type iSCSI, right? So looks like it supports those two. We should be able to do some testing and working it out, and we'll go from there. So folks, that's what I have for you today. I know that was a super long video. We covered a lot of topics on the Asustor. I'm so glad they're set up. In the future videos coming up, we're going to be going through some hard disks changes, messing around with a little bit, hooking up Plex, doing all types of fun stuff. So join me again, hit that subscribe button, and have a great day.